4 hours. It will be much beyond that, and that's expected to come into effect on the 7th of August. He has said that India has not been a good trading partner and reiterated that India is buying Russian oil and fueling the war machine. But New Delhi has had enough. In a strongly worded statement, India issued a point-by-point rebuttal, calling out the United States and the European Union for targeting India for importing oil from Russia. India said that it began importing from Russia because traditional supplies were diverted to Europe after the outbreak of the conflict. And in fact, it was the United States who actively encouraged such imports. In its statement, the MEA highlighted how the United States continues to import from Russia. There are several things that they import, including uranium hexafluoride for its nuclear industry, palladium for its EV industry, and fertilizers. India added that Europe-Russia trade includes not just energy, but also fertilizers like the United States, mining products, chemicals, iron and steel. So why the lecturing only for India? While stating the facts, New Delhi has said that targeting it was unjustified, it was unreasonable, and that like any other major economy, India will take all necessary steps to safeguard its national interests and economic security.
Complicated and uncertain times. Our collective desire is to see a fair and representative global order, not one dominated by a few. Traditions are of particular value because ultimately they define identity. We must be assured about what we are if we want to be confident about shaping the future. For nations like us, traditions are truly a great source of strength.
Now, while Donald Trump attacks India for importing oil from Russia, it forgets that they continue to import a lot from this country despite them imposing sanctions. For one, fertilizers. Amongst the most significant imports, fertilizers are the most imported item to the United States from Russia throughout most of 2024, over $1 billion worth. Non-ferrous materials or metals that do not contain iron like palladium or aluminium, it totaled at about 876 million in imports just last year. Inorganic chemicals is another import from Russia to the United States. Contributed to more than 683 million as far as its 2024 import total went. That's not all. Former ambassador of the United States to India had batted for India buying oil from Russia, and that happened just last year. Perhaps Donald Trump and his entire team, who's now threatening India, should hear this.
And we have existential crises on two borders. And if we're invaded tomorrow, you want us to be anti-Russian? So, like, once you get there, we kind of got past the ability of saying, oh, just follow America, you have to do exactly as we do. And we take the smaller victories. Like, actually, they bought Russian oil because we wanted somebody to buy Russian oil at a price cap. That was not a violation or anything. It was actually the design of the policy, because as a commodity, we didn't want oil prices going up. And they fulfilled that.
Back home, politics is also brewing, and it's only peaking with the Congress continuing to question the BJP government's foreign policy. Mocking the special bond between Prime Minister Modi and the United States President Donald Trump, the Congress alleged that that friendship has come at a cost to India. They also allege that it's clear that our relations with the United States have deteriorated. But some within the Congress party decided to toe the nation-first line, calling out Trump for his tantrums, because that's what they are, as India should, in one voice.
हाउडी मोदी कराया, नमस्ते ट्रंप कराया, अगली बार अब की बार ट्रंप सरकार कराया, फ़ोटो ऑप हुई, वाइट हाउस चले गए, हमारे विदेश मंत्री फर्स्ट रो में बैठे हुए थे जब राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप शपथ ग्रहण हो रहा, वो वाइट हाउस में जब रिसेप्शन हुआ, ये सब दावे किए गए। विशेष रिश्ता है, प्रधानमंत्री का विशेष रिश्ता है राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप के साथ, पुराने मित्र है, माय फ्रेंड डोनाल्ड, माय फ्रेंड नरेंद्र मोदी, ये सब दावे किए जाते थे ना। और उसका नतीजा देखिए, धमकियां दी जा रही हैं, 25% से ऊपर टैरिफ लगाया जा रहा है, हमें धमकी दी जा रही है कि रूस से आप तेल मत खरीदिए। ये दोस्ती बहुत कीमती निकली ना।
We must take all decisions solely based on national interest, and we shouldn't get bullied by the impulsive tweets or proclamations of another head of state. That being said, also say that perhaps there has been a misreading from our administration regarding the relationship they have with President Trump.
Let's open this up. Priyam Gandhi Modi, Director of Vishwamitra Research Foundation, is with us. National spokesperson of the BJP, Tuhin Sinha, joins us. And spokesperson of the Congress, Brijesh Kalapa, is with us as well. Priyam Modi, let me begin by asking you, why do you think Donald Trump is on such a war path as far as tariffs are concerned with India? Why is he burning bridges with an ally like India, even though he seems to be wanting to counter China, but China gets a 90-day free pass because their talks and negotiations over a trade deal are still on?
Yes, absolutely. So our analysis, thank you first of all for having me on the show. So let me begin by saying this, that India was one of the first countries that the United States, that the Trump administration began its trade negotiations with. The goalpost for the United States has continuously changed since the negotiations began. And it's no longer, so when the tariff idea was proposed by the Trump administration, it was supposed to be reciprocal tariffs. There is no reciprocity in any negotiations anymore. Clearly, it looks like the decisions are being made from a more geopolitical, biased, motivated lens. Now, the consequences of this are, of course, creating a thaw in a relationship, in the Indo-US relationship that both countries have worked on for over a couple of decades. And it's a very consequential, it has the potential to be a very consequential relationship for a century. Unfortunately, we feel that the Trump administration has been quite short-sighted and has not accommodated India's stature in the world while dealing with us in the current point in time.
Brijesh Kalapa, does the Congress believe that Donald Trump, the President of the United States, seems to be behaving very much like a bully?
Mr. Trump, I think, has been behaving rather petulantly and impulsively on several occasions. But it was not any member of the Congress party which claimed to have a special relationship with him. And it was not any member of the Congress party which initiated a major hug diplomacy with the US president. It was not any member of the Congress party. It was not a prime minister of the Congress party who went and claimed that ab ki baar Trump sarkar and all this, and then also claimed that we had a two-tariff relationship with a US president. So this kind of so-called bonhomie, I think in the very beginning itself, I think many of us realized that this was going to take us nowhere, because just going and hugging somebody in public and trying to be more friendly than necessary was highly unnecessary. First thing is, we have seen how in 2008 and in 2009, soon after the nuclear deal was concerned, how Dr. Manmohan Singh was very ably able to steer an outstanding deal with the United States. Again, after 26/11, you've seen how President Obama spoke against Pakistan, spoke against terrorism. Where is that happening now? It can't be. See, foreign policy cannot be a one-man affair or a two-man affair. Who knows what is happening with the foreign policy of this country other than Mr. Modi and Mr. Jaishankar? It can't be just that. It has to have serious, behind-the-scenes work and burning the midnight oil, convincing the US side that, look, this is our point of view, and then taking them along.
But don't you think, Brijesh Kalapa, that's what's happening as far as the trade negotiations go? Because there are at least two sectors, dairy and agriculture, where India has refused to give United States the access that they want, which is why the talks have come at such a level where we have the Trump administration threatening us with these tariffs. It is because India has stood their ground, isn't it?
I totally disagree with you. And in fact, Mr. Ashok Malik's statement is more than evocative, that as far as agriculture itself, the Indian Union was willing to bend over backwards, and he's the advisor to the foreign external affairs minister. So I don't agree with you on that at all. And like I told you, see, there are certain sectors which are going to suffer very, very, very profoundly as a result of these tariffs. Now, China on the one hand has been threatened with 100% tariff, but it's standing strong. right? So if the Prime Minister has the nerve, then he should either stand strong and tell the Indians to rally behind him, or do a deal with the United States, come what may, in whatever manner, burn the midnight oil, and then convince the American side that, look, we are not going to, go along with this. So I think there are two options with the Indian Prime Minister. But first and foremost, I think he must admit, candidly to the Indian people that, look, as far as his foreign policies have been concerned, they are an utter failure from day one. I think.
Tuhin Sinha, how do you respond that the Congress and the opposition alleges this is a failure of the foreign policy, at least as far as United States is concerned? Maybe India misjudged the kind of relationship you had with Donald Trump and the United States.
Well, good evening, Poonam. Good evening, everybody. The Congress party, which has repeatedly and gullibly played into the hands of Pakistan and China, should not lecture us on our foreign policy. Ideally, India and US were meant to be natural allies. Until a few months back, we had a very robust trade of last year we had a cumulative trade of $132 billion, and we were targeting $500 billion over the next 5 years. But unfortunately, I do admit that the present crisis is a challenge. Now, one thing is very clear. This is a government which will not compromise on the interests of our farmers, on the interests of MSMEs, and moreover, when it comes to, absurd allegations being leveled of us fueling the war machine in Russia, we will not take such a fallacious and inaccurate statement. So this is a passing phase. I'm sure we will overcome it. India, with being the fourth largest economy in the world, with a well over $4 trillion economy, is in a much, much better position to handle the present crisis than we were 11 years ago. But yes, like I mentioned, the hypocrisy of the West, I think, it was about time we called out the hypocrisy of the world, of the West. India and Russia are traditional partners, and I don't think any country can dictate where we buy our fossil fuels and where we buy our energy requirements from. Any which way, to put it on record once again, in the last 3 or 4 years, it is China which has imported maximum fossil fuels from Russia, followed by European Union, and India is third. So, the entire crisis seems to have been premeditated. And I think, India expects consistency in mutual respect in all its friendships and all its alliances. And, no country is an exception.
Vijesh Kalappa, it's also about the kind of narrative that's being said at a time when we want to make it clear to the world and to the United States that not one ally can dictate our foreign policy. At such a time, if questions are being raised within India, within our polity, do you think that doesn't quite fare well of how India is dealing with its allies?
No, come on, I don't think you should lecture a political party which is in opposition.
I'm not lecturing anybody, I'm asking you a question.
No, I don't think that is appropriate at all. This kind of questioning has killed our foreign policy so far. And this is entirely the mistake of the media, by not asking the right questions.
Why is it that the opposition can ask questions that they want, but not let the media ask the questions we want?
Don't be defensive. I'm generally saying, I wish the media was a little more vigilant, had asked the right questions at the right time. We would not have been in this very sorry situation. The first thing is, stop asking and stop thinking that, look, everybody is your enemy. There can be people who are telling you things in your favor that will help you eventually, but you don't want to listen. If you don't want to listen, naturally you will not get these voices. If you don't get these voices, naturally you will be in a very sorry state of affairs. And this is exactly what has happened. Every time somebody speaks against what is happening as far as policies are concerned, then there is either the media or the BJP to tell us, no, don't ask these questions. Without asking these questions, why have you landed here? You were supposed to have had a two-tadak relationship with the US president. What happened? I think these are, it makes Indians very angry. That, we are a democracy, and in a democracy, a political party is not supposed to be told how to run the nation, because that sends a wrong signal to people outside. Please, let's understand that we are not some banana republic which is going to just collapse if questions are not asked of the government.
And nobody's suggesting so. Nobody's suggesting so.
Exactly. What was the question you asked then?
If, like I said, Brijesh Kalappa, if the opposition, including the Congress, can ask the questions they want to ask, I'm sure it's democratic enough for anybody within the media to also ask those questions that we want. And I'm only saying, and I will tell you why I'm asking you these questions. Because yes, everybody in a democracy has the right to ask questions, but there's a time and place for it. Like when Pahalgam happened. Sir, can I please finish my question?
Then how is it to be helped? How is the crisis to be helped? If the government
can I please finish my question?
Even when there is a crisis,
then
how is the crisis to be helped?
Has anyone stopped you from making those comments that the Congress has made? Has anybody gagged anyone from within the Congress to make the kind of comments that they've made? No, right? But Tuhin Sinha, you had a point to make.
Anyway, I think you can stop.
It's very weird to see the Congress party, repeatedly lecture us on our foreign policy, because just today the Eastern Command of Indian Army has posted a tweet where they've shared a screenshot of how US arms worth $2 billion were shipped to Pakistan since 1954 over a period of 15 years. So we know, until the visit of Bill Clinton to India in 1999, which was an inflection point, we have seen the kind of relationship which previous Congress governments have shared with USA. So I don't think, they should really be lecturing us. There are challenges. This is a challenging time, but we are way better equipped to handle it with the way our economy has grown and with the way investments have flowed across sectors. Now, Global South, the way we have opened up our markets, I'm sure we are going to look for opportunities elsewhere if it doesn't get settled. But I'm also equally confident that over a period of time, this will still find closure and this will be settled amicably.
I mean, that's really the hope. But the point of the matter also is that why is this sudden turn of events as far as Donald Trump's tone and tenor is concerned? Priya Modi, I see your hand going up, but I'm also joined by Charles Kupchan, who's the senior fellow at CFR. Thank you so much for joining us here on CNN News 18. I want to ask you this. India was one of the first countries that was on the talks table with the United States as far as the trade deal was concerned. And Donald Trump has admitted to that. On multiple occasions, he said, we're very close to making a deal. The progress has been good. And then all of a sudden, we see him calling us names, him calling India and saying that, you're not a good trading partner, 25% is the very least, we'll impose far more. What explains that kind of change in stance?
I think there are lots of different things in play. One is tariffs. I mean, Donald Trump isn't committed to a lot of things. He's a very transactional leader, not so much an ideological leader, with one exception. And that is he believes in tariffs, and he's slapping tariffs on lots and lots of different trading partners. India's rate is much higher than many of the other countries that we've seen get hit with tariffs recently. A second thing is that I think there has been a deterioration in the relationship, partly over tariffs, but also about disagreements over how the fight between India and Pakistan ended. Trump saying he's the one who intervened, Modi saying, no, that's not what happened. And then the third and perhaps the most important piece of the puzzle is that Trump has turned on Russia. He started off blaming Ukraine for the war, throwing Zelensky out of the Oval Office. Then he felt he was being played by Putin, that Putin was talking to him, saying nice things on the phone, and then launching 600 drones on Ukraine. And that has led to this position where he says, okay, now I'm going to stand up to Putin. And part of that pressure is to impose penalties on those countries like India that are buying Russian energy. Is he going to do the same for China? We don't know, but I think that's the mix of factors that are pushing Trump to slap these high tariffs on India.
But it doesn't look like China is going that way, at least as far as where the negotiations stand. In fact, they got a 90-day grace period for those negotiations to go forward. That's not something that India got. And if you compare what relationship China and United States have versus what relationship India and the United States have, one would suggest that maybe India would get that sort of a leeway and not China.
One would hope so. And that's in part because the relationship between the United States and India has been on an upward trajectory of late. President Biden reached out to India. He gave Prime Minister Modi a state dinner. There was a sense that India needs to be part of a broader coalition to check the rise of China. The Quad has become an important diplomatic venue, but Trump does not seem to understand that. We don't know what went on behind the scenes in the trade negotiations between India and the United States. It may have been that those negotiations didn't go very well. It may be that Trump feels that India's tariffs on agricultural goods, for example, are particularly unfair. But for whatever reason, he seems to have come out of the gate angry at India, choosing India as opposed to countries that aren't American partners, that don't have a good relationship with the United States, and hitting them particularly hard. Exactly why? Difficult to say.
Priya Modi, you had your hand going up, but I also want to ask you this. You know, it's not just about China, it's also about the European Union. They've been trading with Russia as far as energy or oil is concerned, and several other things, including fertilizers, that the United States also continues to buy. So when Donald Trump goes ahead and calls India not a good trading partner, isn't he forgetting some things? Maybe homework not well done?
Well, part of
yes. So one of the important numbers for us to remember is that in the first 5 months of this year itself, the United States has crossed over $2 billion in trade with Russia. So that's an important number to keep in mind. I also think that the tariff is being used as a tool, as an economic tool. It's like to push more political agenda. Unfortunately for the United States, I think this will push the global East closer to each other. That's not what they want. Certainly that does fit into India's diplomatic strategy, which is to continue to open our doors to multiple poles of the world. India and the United States, of course, are some of the largest poles of the world. And it is very difficult for India to have to eventually, if the deal doesn't crack, to open the world minus the United States approach. We are agile, our economy is agile, we're very insulated, like we've seen, to global shocks, whether it is COVID, whether it is the recession. At multiple times, whenever our leadership faces this kind of an economic global shock, there is usually the call for Swadeshi, which is make in India, consume Indian items, that usually gets to work. And I think that's how India is going to cope with it. Having said that, I do think that better sense and better heads will prevail in the trade discussions between the two countries, and certainly decades of work to bring us closer will not go in vain.
Because Donald Trump is only here for another 3 years or more, but the ties between India and United States, Brajesh Kalappa, are here to stay. And that's something that needs to be kept in mind as well, that we're not dealing with one man, but we're dealing with a country. So just what this man particularly does to either needle us or to provoke us unnecessarily, ties of the two countries, and be it trade, be it bilateral ties, that's something that's at stake, and accordingly decisions need to be taken.
Exactly the point I was trying to make, that this is not a relationship between two individuals, and this is a relationship people to people between the people of the United States and the people of India. And I think this is very important for not just us as Indians to understand, but more importantly, for those of us who run the government of India to understand. And those of us, of course, naturally, who are in the government of the United States to understand. But I think more importantly is, there are certain sectors which are going to be seriously affected by this whopping tariff, and also the plan to have more additional tariffs in times to come. And these are the sectors of steel and aluminium, and there's pharma, there's textile and apparels, and there's solar equipment, there's also engineering in the other sectors like this. And there's also the jewelry sector and the gem sector. So I think the first thing that the government of India must do is to how to protect these sectors. I think there must be a clear policy of economic resilience, which is, to strengthen these sectors, to isolate them, and to ensure that they are, largely untouched by this kind of a tariff. I think the first thing that the government of India must do, and I hope you don't mind my making these comments, because, either the media or the BJP will tell us, no, don't talk to the government of India at this time. I hope you will listen to us. I hope the government of India listens to us and then tries to protect these sectors from, because there is going to be a very heavy shock on account of these very heavy tariffs. And I think the first thing that the government of India must do is to ensure that these sectors and the people who are involved in these sectors, and lakhs of them, are somehow protected and ensured that there is no danger to them.
Tohin, as far as India's approach is concerned, India, of course, has now drawn the line not just on these sectors, but also as far as these tariff threats go. But one of the reasons why China seems to have gotten this grace period is also because China threatened reciprocal tariffs on the United States. Is that what India needs to do? Maybe India has shied away from doing that, which is why Donald Trump is taking this far too many steps forward?
India responds in a mature way, and I think India's response so far has been extremely nuanced and extremely mature. Going ahead, I can assure you, the way I see it, it's a temporary upheaval. It won't last long. But yes, it's important for us to hold our ground. Unlike the Congress party, which thinks it is providing suggestions but ends up berating the country every time. For example, the day Donald Trump called India a dead economy, Rahul Gandhi jumped and started echoing those same words. These are not suggestions. If you have suggestions, approach people in the right places, approach the government. But I think, we will take a very considered call going ahead. And like I said, I think, the way our economy has evolved in the last 11 years, we are way better equipped to handle any challenge right now. We would ideally, like to get back to the negotiating table because even though the negotiations were prolonged, they were going on for the last 3-4 months, we still believe that we were close to cracking a mutually amicable deal, which can still happen now, provided, the US sheds its unilateral decisions.
So the United States needing India as much as one would say India needs them. I mean, a lot of things that are imported from India to the United States are available at the cost that they are because they're imported.
I think we need to look beyond trade because like I had mentioned at the
start.
I
get that, Tohin, but the question was to Charles.
I think what you said a few minutes ago is very important, and that is Trump is not going to be there forever. And I think my recommendation to countries like India and others that are being hit with these high tariffs is play the long game. And I understand that there are competing political incentives. On the one hand, you want to hit back, you want to impose retaliatory tariffs, you want to stand up to an American president that, let's be honest, is behaving like a bully. On the other hand, you don't want to get into a trade war with the United States, especially a country with the economic power of the United States. And that may be one of the reasons that Trump is playing this game of chicken with India, but not with China, because the stakes are much higher with China, given the volume of trade and investment between the United States and China. But I do think, for example, that with Europe, we saw Europe blink. They said, we right now don't want to get into a trade war with the United States. And as a consequence, we're going to accept a deal that we don't like, but in the long run, it may be the right thing to do. And I think that's in general what I would advise countries around the world to do. Play the long game, hold your ground, but try to avoid getting into a trade war that really does disrupt our economies and fragment the international marketplace.
And we do really hope, like Priya Modi said, that better sense prevails, cooler heads prevail as far as the two countries and this tariff war is concerned, because many would suggest that Trump may not necessarily be in a position to win this war that he seems to be waging against India. But I have to leave it there. I thank you all for joining us here on Brass Tacks. Shifting focus now to the Himalayan state of Uttarakhand, which once again is staring at a massive tragedy. There were 2 cloudbursts that were reported earlier this afternoon, one from the Darali village and the other in Sukito. At least 4 lives have been unfortunately lost. Many more are still unaccounted for. In fact, horrific visuals of the incident of the moment when tragedy struck. We saw a strong stream of water actually flowing down from the hill. The village was entirely swept away. People recording the video were seen heard asking these residents to flee. Many of them did try, but that's where the tragedy struck. In fact, this Harsil area is where the second cloudburst took place. The first one was in Darali village. It is a race against time really for relief workers, for the NDRF, the SDRF, all of whom have been on ground ensuring that they reach the last man and rescue that person to safety. But there are several people that have been caught on the path of this ravaging river really, and these visuals that are coming to the fore now from on ground, from the Uttarkashi region, is terrifying to say the least. The first one, of course, is of this river Bhagirathi, which seems to be in there is absolutely no way that this was the river 24 hours ago. This is what we're seeing after the cloudburst and the flash flood occurred. It's in complete flow at the moment. It is at its seams, or even worse, that what happens to the villages, to the settlements that are next to it. That's really the concern, which is why we are seeing rescue operations take place at the speed that they are. But unfortunately, it's nightfall. It's only going to be a challenge from here on. It's not just these villages and commercial establishments that were struck. There was a military camp that was hit, that was in the way of that ravaging river as well. This is in Harsil, where the second cloudburst took place. We're given to understand that several army jawans, several army officers who were at that camp are still unaccounted for. There are attempts that are being made to get in touch with them to try and ensure that we see all of these people taken to safer ground, taken to safety as well. This is now what the Uttarkashi region looks like. This is the aftermath, the trail of destruction as you see on your screens. There's very little clear ground that you see. It's complete water everywhere. Some of these houses are partially submerged. Some of them are completely underwater. This is the trail of destruction that was left behind. Several people are still unaccounted for. They're still missing. There are rescue operations that are currently underway. The SDRF, the NDRF, the ITBP, the Indian Army, they're all on ground there. The Indian Air Force is also on standby. But unfortunately, the weather has been such that helicopter movement has not been possible, which is why we haven't seen the choppers go up in the air to ensure that we reach these people faster. But listen in to some reactions that have come in from on ground, detailing what exactly happened and what's the way forward.
देखिए, ये जो घटना हुई है तकरीबन 2 बजे हर्षिल गांव में, इसके बाद तुरंत जब सूचना मिली तो एनडीआरएफ की 3 टीमों को मनेरा, बरकोट और देहरादून से रवाना किया गया है। जो इनिशियल रिपोर्ट्स है उसके मुताबिक तकरीबन 40 से 50 घर जो है वो बाधित हुए हैं, बह गए हैं उसमें, और 50 से ज़्यादा लोगों को ये मिसिंग बताए जा रहे हैं, कुछ डेड बताए जा रहे हैं। तो अभी पूरा जो ये अभी आकलन किया जा रहा है और अभी इंफॉर्मेशन अवेटेड है।
Colonel Ajay Kotial joins us live now. He led the Kedarnath disaster and the reconstruction task in 2013. Thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. I want to ask, what do you make of what transpired back then and what happened now, if there is any difference, so to say, or how the rescue operations should go on from now?
Ma'am, you see, abhi our priority should be firstly saving the lives. Like isme saving lives, and thereafter the material damage, how to save that material damage, further deterioration. तो saving lives में अगर say if I am a planner, तो मैं तो ये देखूँगा कि before I reach there to carry out rescue operation, वो कौन लोग होंगे जिनको पता होगा कि कहाँ पे ह्यूमंस थे, चाहे वो सड़क पे थे या किसी बिल्डिंग के अंदर थे, उसकी जानकारी मेरे को पहले से अगर रहेगी वो मेरे को मिल सकती है फ्रॉम द लोकल्स हु वर देयर एंड हु हैव नॉट गॉट अफेक्टेड ड्यू टू दिस अवलांच इफेक्ट, दिस डिजास्टर अवलांच ड्यू टू डिजास्टर इफेक्ट। सेकेंडली मेरे को चाहिए कि मेरी जब टीम वहाँ पहुँच रही है, दैट टीम हैज़ टू बी मोर ऑफ अ ब्रूट फोर्स, टीम इन स्ट्रेंथ। दैट टीम हाउ डज इट रीच द लोकेशन इमीडिएटली, तो रास्ते पूरे क्लियर हों, बीच में कहीं अगर कोई ट्रैफिक जैम है उसको पहले ही कैसे खबर दे करके हम टाइम पे पहुंच सकें। लाइक देयर इज अ बटालियन ऑफ इन्फेंट्री इन हर्सिल नेक्स्ट टू द प्लेस वेयर दिस डिजास्टर हैज टेकन प्लेस। हाउ डज दैट बटालियन गेट इंफॉर्मेशन एंड हाउ डज दैट बटालियन गेट मोबिलाइज टू रीच दिस प्लेस। थर्डली, वहाँ पहुँचने के बाद में जो रेस्क्यू टीम है उसका कैसे अलग अलग ग्रुप्स में डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन हो। One is the team which is facilitating the rescuers to reach inside the place where the disaster has got these humans hold up inside building or wherever they have got hold up. उनको ले जाने then the team which reaches वहाँ पे लोगों को मिले, तो लोगों को अब निकालने वाले तो एक प्रोसेस हो गई, लेकिन सब लोग निकालने के बाद में उनको इवैक्यूएट करने में ना लगे। इवैक्यूएट करने के लिए एक अलग पार्टी है। तो वंस वी आर प्रिपेयर्ड फॉर दिस टाइप ऑफ इवेंचुअलिटी, so the teams are already made as part of disaster responders team. तो इस प्रोसेस को करने के बाद में देन कौन कितनी चोट लग रखी है, किसी का पाँव कट गया है, कोई बहुत ज़्यादा सीरियस है, उनको प्रायोरिटाइज करा जाए और कैसे फिर इवैक्यूएशन की जो स्पेस है, रोड है इवैक्यूएशन के लिए, वो क्लियर रखी जाए। जिनको हेलीकॉप्टर से इवैक्यूएशन की ज़रूरत है वो इमीडिएटली हेलीकॉप्टर से हो, जिनको मतलब जिंदा रहेंगे लेकिन वो बाय रोड हो सकते हैं, उनको बाय रोड करा जाए। सो दिस इज़ हाउ वी कैन सेव लाइव्स इन नेक्स्ट 2-3-4 आवर्स। उसके बाद में तो फिर क्या होता है कि अभी जितना मलबा आ रखा है ना, वो सारा ही ऊपर इस तरीके से सेटल हो जाएगा, सीमेंटिंग हो जाएगी उसकी, कि फिर तो बहुत बड़ी बड़ी मशीनें लगाना, ब्लास्टिंग करना, वो सारी प्रोसेस में आना पड़ेगा।
जी, but Colonel Kotial, I want to ask you this. From 2013 to now, 12 years later, अभी भी हम ऐसी ट्रेजेडीज देख रहे हैं। आप एक माउंटेनियर भी रह चुके हैं, इसलिए मैं जानना चाहती हूँ, what do you think is the real problem here? Why do you think this keeps happening ever so often in Uttarakhand?
You see, firstly, उत्तराखंड इज़ अ हिमालयन स्टेट। ऐसी और भी जो हिमालयन स्टेट है उनकी कुछ अपनी एक पिक्यूलैरिटी होती है। रोज़गार के तरीके होते हैं। रोज़गार के तरीके जो हैं, दीज आर बेस्ड ऑन द नेचर, द पावर ऑफ नेचर विच अट्रैक्ट्स पीपल टू कम टू दिस प्लेस। इट कैन बी रिलीजियस रीजन, लाइक दिस वैली, दिस इज़ फेमस फॉर गंगोत्री टेम्पल, गंगोत्री श्राइन, बट दिस इज़ ऑल्सो फेमस फॉर द the beauty in the nature, and Harsil is specifically famous for that. अब अगर इस टाइप की जो रोजगार के तरीके हैं, जब उनका कोई सब्स्टिट्यूट तो हम देख नहीं सकते, बिकॉज दीज आर दी ओनली फैक्ट्रीज, रेवेन्यू जनरेशन फैक्ट्रीज इन हिल्स। तो इन्हीं में हमने रहना भी है, इन्हीं में हमने काम भी करना है, इसी में हमने रोजगार के तरीके देखने और करना भी है अपना सर्वाइवल। 2013 में when this disaster had come, Uttarakhand disaster, Kedarnath disaster, thereafter Uttarakhand was the first state which had created SDRF, State Disaster Response Force, ground पे जो करती है। But SDRF create करने के साथ में in those 10-12 years, have we been able to make those executive plans for Harsil Valley different, फॉर केदारनाथ वैली डिफरेंट, फॉर बद्रीनाथ वैली डिफरेंट, क्योंकि हर जगह की ना कुछ खासियतें हैं और डिजास्टर के भी टाइप्स जो हैं उनके अलग अलग जो हैं, उनके लिए फिर इवैक्यूएशन प्लान में कैसे हम लेकर के चल सकें। लाइक दिस डिजास्टर, इन माय अंडरस्टैंडिंग व्हाट हैज हैपेंड इज द कंप्लीट क्लाउड बर्स्ट इफेक्ट हैज कम डाउन बाय ग्रेविटी थ्रू अ वैली, जो कि इस वीडियो में भी दिख रहा है। लेकिन क्लाउड बर्स्ट का फिनोमेना बड़ा एक ऑब्वियस होता जा रहा है हिमालय में, कि वैसे तो साल भर में कभी ना कभी होता रहता है, बट ड्यूरिंग मानसून्स ये बहुत ज्यादा हो रहा है, अनस्टेबल, किसी भी जगह पे अनप्रिडिक्टेबल हो रखा है। एक फिनोमेना क्राउड बर्स्ट का ये कहता है कि जैसे जमीन से ना जो पानी जब भाप बनता है और ऊपर की तरफ जाता है उड़ करके, तो से व्हेन इट गेन्स हाइट ऑफ से अराउंड 1 किलोमीटर, तो 1 किलोमीटर में कोई 1.5 सेंटीमीटर टेम्परेचर डाउन होता है। सडनली दिस वेपर विच हैज बीन क्रिएटेड when it reaches up 1 किलोमीटर, तो एकदम से ठंडा हो जाता है। ठंडा होके ना वो अनस्टेबल होता है, तो किसी वैली में जाकर के फंस जाता है और वहाँ पे जाकर के जब वो बर्स्ट होता है तो एकदम से नीचे।
That's something that we have to live with, but we do have to find ways to work around it. Colonel Kotial, thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. My colleague Anshul now joins us. The cloudburst and the flash floods that took place, one was in Dharali village, the other was in Suki Top near Harsil, but a lot of Uttarakhand is seeing the kind of damage that we are seeing, and my colleague in fact is live with us from Haridwar. Anshul, what's the situation like there? We're given to understand there too there has been some amount of damage that has been reported.
Well, yes, the water levels have increased significantly over here in Haridwar as well, and that is the reason why all the ghats of Haridwar have now been shut down. Police deployment has been made. I'll just try and show you in the visuals over here. Right behind me is the Ganga river, and in this river as well there is a significant increase of water, is what we are being told by the locals over here. And since this morning there has been constant rain that has happened over here, and it is predicted that tomorrow as well there will be a constant spell of heavy rain that will engulf the entire Uttarakhand as well, which means that tomorrow as well it is going to be very, very difficult for the rescue operations to go on at a brisk pace. Now over here in Haridwar as well, the local administration has gone ahead and announced a holiday for all the schools and Anganwadis that will be operating in Haridwar. Apart from this, a clear message has been given to each and every person and police officials as well that no one should be allowed to get anywhere close to the ghats at this point in time, because the water level could increase at any moment, and hence safety of people is something that should be looked into. Over here as we are speaking as well, there is a constant spell of rain that is happening over here. It is expected by tomorrow morning the water levels would increase in Haridwar as well. So from Haridwar to Harshil, which is at least 300 kilometers away from here, the entire route is somewhere or the other getting disturbed. There are reports that are coming in by the way of locals that some sort of a landslide is happening after every few minutes. Some are small, some are big, but yes, the clearing operation is also being done by the SDRF. And at this point in time, apart from this, the local police has been deployed near each and every junction where there is a constant collection of tourists or people, and at those locations as well, the police is trying to make sure that people are convinced to go back and they are not allowed to stay stationed at any of these ghats. So the situation over here on ground zero from Haridwar all the way up to Harshil, where the incident has happened, the entire route is seeing heavy downpour at this point in time, and the mountains, the terrain that is present over here of the mountains in Uttarakhand, the youngest mountains, it becomes absolutely difficult for the rescue operations to be carried out. Even at this point as we are speaking, the latest update that we have picked up from the SDRF, that just a few hours ago they have been able to reach on ground zero, and at least 60 people who were stuck in those villages nearby have been taken out from there safely and have been taken to a safer spot, whereas the equipments have been brought in to carry out the rescue operation at a large scale. So this is looking like a massive rescue operation that will happen for several days is what is expected at this point in time. The biggest issue and the biggest difficulty that is being faced by all the rescuers, be it the army, ITBP, NDRF, SDRF, local police, the biggest obstacle in front of them at this point in time is the constant rain that is happening over here. And tomorrow as well, it is expected that through the day tomorrow, there is going to be a heavy spell of rain that will engulf the entire Uttarakhand region.
Right, Anshul, do stay on with us. In fact, we've been speaking to stakeholders who've been telling us what exactly the situation is on ground. Members of Parliament from Uttarakhand also briefed the Union Home Minister earlier today in the Parliament. Let's listen into some more reactions.
पूरी तरीके से परिस्थिति पे वहाँ नज़र रखे है, वहाँ प्रशासन पहुँच गया है, NDRF, SDRF भी वहाँ मूव कर दी गई है। अभी हम लोग माननीय गृह मंत्री जी से भी हम लोगों ने मुलाकात की है और उनके द्वारा भी बताया गया है कि जितनी भारत सरकार की एजेंसीज हैं वो सब वहाँ भेज दी गई हैं। सेना को भी कहा गया है कि वहाँ तैयारी रखें और ITBP और SDRF जितनी भी हमारी एजेंसीज हैं सब वहाँ पहुँच गई हैं। जिस तरह की वहाँ मौसम की स्थिति है वो बड़ी प्रतिकूल परिस्थितियाँ हैं। भगवान बद्री विशाल से ये कामना करते हैं कि कम से कम जनहानि हो, कम से कम लोगों का नुकसान हो। जो भी वहाँ रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन है वो तेजी से चलाया जा रहा है।
Anshul, as far as the rescue operation is concerned, now it's nightfall. That, of course, is another challenge. What is the status? Has it been continuing? Has it halted? We're given to understand that the Air Force is also on standby, but the helicopters haven't been able to fly because the weather is that bad.
Well, yes, not only the weather is inclement at this point, but also the place where these helicopters were supposed to land, that is in the Harshil Army camp, that entire helipad has also been inundated in water, which makes it absolutely impossible for any helicopter to land at this point in time, and that is becoming a massive headache because there is a need of heavy equipments that needs to reach over there, and it is only through helicopters that a few of these equipments could reach there on time. But yes, the equipments that were present in places like Harshil and places like Uttarkashi, they are slowly reaching towards ground zero to carry out this entire rescue and search operation as well. What local sources are telling us is that at least 50 to 60 people have been reported missing who are feared to be stuck under the debris. However, an exact number has still not been announced from the side of the local administration. They are still awaiting for the entire rescue team to reach over there. The initial focus of the rescuers, specifically during the night time, is that the villagers of that village who are who are not under the debris at least, they are taken away from there, because it is predicted that tomorrow as well a similar situation can happen in that entire area, and hence the focus of the administration is to make sure that people who are safe at this point in time, they are taken away from these dangerous zones and are moved towards the safer higher reaches of the mountain, so that they can at least be safe, whereas the administration can solely focus on the rescue operations, and the rescue operations are still underway. SDRF teams are working at this point in time. Generators have also reached on the ground, and the electricity supply on the rescue site is also being given constantly.
Right.
So definitely the situation still is far from getting anywhere close to normal, but yes, the rescue operations are underway at this point in time. Rescuers are trying to carry out this rescue operation through the night.
Right.
It remains to be seen what will eventually happen tomorrow morning, if at all the weather will clear up and the rescue teams would be able to reach Harshil by tomorrow morning.
Right, Anshul, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that front, and be safe as you report from on ground there in Uttarakhand. Before I wrap up this edition of Brass Tacks, I do want to highlight another important development that is taking place, and that's the 5-day state visit on which the Philippines president is here in India for. He met with President Draupadi Murmu earlier today. There was a ceremonial welcome for him and the First Lady, who are in India for the first time since he took over in 2022. He's met with the Prime Minister. He's also met with External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. The Pahalgam terror attack and India's fight against terror was something that was discussed between those two leaders. Prime Minister Modi also thanking Marcos Jr. for condemning in the strongest words the Pahalgam attack and ensuring their support in bringing the perpetrators of this dastardly attack to justice. So why exactly is this visit important for both Philippines and for India? I dig deeper. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos is in India for a 5-day visit. This is his first visit to India and comes as the two nations commemorate 75 years of diplomatic relations. Accompanied by First Lady Luis Arneta Marcos, the duo received their ceremonial welcome at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. New Delhi rolled out the red carpet for them. The visit of the Philippine president aims to significantly deepen bilateral ties and cooperation, especially in the sector of defense. Philippines is the first foreign buyer of India's BrahMos supersonic cruise missile. Both countries signed a $375 million contract back in 2022. Deliveries began in April last year. Now, Manila is pursuing additional defense procurements, including potentially the Akash missile system and maritime platforms. That relationship has been upgraded during this particular visit. India and the Philippines have signed terms of reference for Army, Air Force and Navy talks with their Filipino counterparts.
I come at a crucial juncture in our bilateral partnership. Today, our relationship enters a new epoch as Prime Minister Modi and I formally launched the strategic partnership between Philippines and India. For the Philippines, this is a momentous decision, for we take a very considered path to such elevated partnerships. Today, India becomes only the 5th strategic partner for the Philippines. This new apex attests as much to the remarkably rapid growth, broadening and deepening of our 75-year-old bilateral relationship. The possibilities represented by the strong upward trajectory of our two economies. We agreed to continue leveling up our collaboration in defense and security. We expressed satisfaction over the rapid pace of the Philippines' ongoing defense modernization and the expanding capabilities and footprint of India's indigenous defense industry as a partner in this undertaking, exemplified by our BrahMos project.
India has been steadily expanding its defense outreach to Southeast Asia. And with the Philippines, this collaboration spans beyond military training. It spans to ship visits to maritime security dialogues as well. Indian Navy and Coast Guard vessels frequently make port calls to the Philippines. Notable visits of India include INS Satpura in June 2022, INS Ranvijay and INS Kora in August 2021. In fact, the Philippine president's visit to New Delhi coincides with the first joint maritime exercise by the two countries in the South China Sea. Indian Navy ships guided missile destroyer INS Delhi, Fleet tanker INS Shakti and anti-submarine warfare corvette INS Kilton were docked in Manila on the 30th of July for a port visit. Followed them was the surveillance ship INS Sandhya. It joined the fleet a day later. Now, this is particularly significant because it aims to counter China's territorial claims in the disputed waters of South China Sea. While Philippines has conducted maritime cooperative activities with foreign navies since late 2023, including with the navies of the United States, Japan, Australia, France and Canada, this is the first time it is doing so with India. Now, keeping China at bay is equally important for both countries. Beijing's increasing assertiveness in the South China Sea has created space for New Delhi to position itself as a balancing power that's committed to both maritime security and a rules-based order. Modi government's Act East policy has enabled New Delhi to leverage India's growing economic strength and defense capabilities to establish meaningful partnerships with ASEAN nations. And Philippines is an integral pillar of this policy, also that of Vision Mahasagar.
हमारी एक्ट ईस्ट पॉलिसी और महासागर विजन में फिलीपींस एक अहम साझेदार है। इंडो पैसिफिक क्षेत्र में शांति, सुरक्षा, समृद्धि और रूल बेस्ड ऑर्डर के लिए हम प्रतिबद्ध हैं। हम अंतर्राष्ट्रीय कानूनों के अनुरूप फ्रीडम ऑफ नेविगेशन का समर्थन करते हैं। अगले वर्ष फिलीपींस आसियान की अध्यक्षता करेगा। इसकी सफलता के लिए हम पूरा सहयोग देंगे। एक्सेलेंसी, इंडिया एंड द फिलीपींस आर फ्रेंड्स बाय चॉइस एंड पार्टनर्स बाय डेस्टिनी। फ्रॉम द इंडियन ओशन टू द पैसिफिक, वी आर यूनाइटेड बाय शेयर्ड वैल्यूज. Our is not just a friendship of the past, it is a promise to the future.
While defense cooperation is the highlight, trade and investment is the backbone of India-Philippines' relationship. Bilateral trade has grown from $1.89 billion in 2015-2016 to $3.53 billion in 2023-24. That is an 86% increase. India maintains a consistent trade surplus, exporting $2.10 billion worth of goods to the Philippines. Key sectors include engineering goods and automotive components. Pharmaceuticals form a big chunk of trade between the two countries. In fact, Indian pharmaceutical products accounted for almost 16% of Philippine pharmaceutical imports back in 2023. Indian companies have invested an estimated $5 billion in the Philippines. This happens largely in sectors like IT and BPO services, pharmaceuticals, textiles, agriculture and FMCG. Additionally, talks are on for a preferential trade agreement as well. Now, those negotiations were revived between the two countries in December 2023. They are likely to see some movement during this visit of Marcos Jr. People-to-people connect is another aspect of bilateral relations between India and Philippines. To encourage tourism and business exchanges, the Philippines introduced visa-free travel for Indian nationals, and now India has decided to give visa-free entry to Philippine nationals. Direct flights between the two countries are expected to resume later this year, and that could significantly boost connectivity. A strong India-Philippines bond matters. Marcos Jr.'s visit is both symbolic and pragmatic. It cements a robust multi-dimensional partnership. It also underscores a collective ambition toward a more secure Indo-Pacific region.
Co-presented by... This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
All right, inside visuals coming in off the parliamentary meeting that we told you is taking place as we speak right now. The Prime Minister likely to get felicitated. The Prime Minister will also be addressing all the gathered MPs. This is a BJP-led NDA parliamentary meeting that you're taking a look at right now. The inside of the meeting, we were bringing you visuals from the outside a few moments ago. On and around the Prime Minister, Amit Shah, JP Nadda, Rajnath Singh, senior ministers of the BJP cabinet present in the front row right now. This meeting on your screens obviously comes after a considerable gap, which is why there is so much focus on it. Listen in.
श्री हर्षवर्धन श्रृंगला जी फॉर्मर फॉरेन सेक्रेटरी हैं और
All right, as we told you a little while earlier, we're likely to see the Prime Minister give an address in a few moments from now. He's expected to speak on a host of current issues. These are all issues that the opposition has been raising the heat over. One obviously is the SIR, and what they say is the EC's alleged partisan conduct favouring the government. The Pahalgam terror attack, Operation Sindoor. Right now, we can see different leaders, MPs gathered there, being felicitated.
Yeah, this is the Thank you.
On your screens right now, you're watching as different MPs watch the announcer. This is the inside visuals coming in from the key NDA meeting that, as we told you a little while earlier, is taking place after a considerable gap of time. Now, we're likely to see two things take place in the next few minutes, according to sources. The first is that the Prime Minister is likely to speak, but also that he's likely to get felicitated by the parliamentary party over his government's response to the terror strike. There is also, but this is not likely to be discussed in this meeting, the vice presidential names and nominees.
On 22nd April,
that process is going to be kicking into full gear very soon.
A fraud and proxy of Lashkar-e-Taiba inflicted a devastation people in cold blood and segregating them based on.
Remember, since the 2024 Lok Sabha elections, the sessional meeting of the party MPs was expanded to include its allies. And that kind of meeting, the first such meeting, was on July 2nd. But no meeting has been held in the last few sessions. The meeting that you're watching on your screens is attended by MPs of the ruling alliance. And usually the Prime Minister will cover a sweep of political and governance issues, at times touch on the government's agenda in the Parliament. What he'll also do typically is offer to the MPs talking points to be raised in public. Now, I just want to go over to our colleague Arun to understand. Arun, what are we watching take place on our screens right now? Obviously, we're looking at the inside of the parliamentary meeting, but we were watching as it looked like different MPs were being felicitated on the stage one by one. What were we watching?
Well, that's right, Zoya. I mean, it's a very important meeting, as we were in fact earlier discussing, that this is the first NDA parliamentary parties meeting post the Operation Sindoor, because this is the first monsoon session post that operation. So it's very important. And, of course, we are seeing the Prime Minister Modi has also arrived there. All the NDA MPs are must to be present in this meeting. And you will see Prime Minister Modi will be giving out a very important message from this platform. We know that the parliamentary party meeting has been a regular feature of the NDA, but this, of course, holds a different significance altogether.
Our colleagues Payal and Aman also join us right now on the phone.
Viewers, this is a new resurgent Bharat, a new India that doesn't roll over for anybody. Not Islamist terrorists, not the nuclear-tipped Pakistan state, not hegemonistic Chinese, or even the exclusivist Europeans. Trump should have known before he went off on an anti-India threat-laced tirade last night that he was going to get a metaphorical kick in his shins from New Delhi. Before we get to India's response, that, in not so many words, exposed Trump for what he really is, a liar, let's quickly recap his tantrum. Donald Trump on Truth Social said, and I quote, India is not only buying massive amounts of Russian oil, they are then, for much of the oil purchased, selling it on the open market for big profits. They don't care how many people in Ukraine are being killed by the Russian war machine. Because of this, I will be substantially raising the tariff paid by India to the United States of America, unquote. Big words from a man with a famously